today's top boxing news.
Ow! Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of what is to be Patricia Bergult's upcoming WBC junior middleweight title defense, Patricia says, when I turned pro, she was the one that I wanted to fight. She being Cecilia Brækhus, a giant in the sport, perhaps bigger than some people realize, than some people give her credit for. Patricia was quoted as saying, "We believe in our strategy and boxing. It feels good, but of course, I'm a bit nervous too." Well, that's just fine. Then you know it's a good fight. It will be fun to compete with one of the greatest.
The emergence of women's boxing and recency bias
has perhaps led to some of the previous generation of fighters, Cecilia Brækhus among them, perhaps has led to them not getting their just due, getting the credit they deserve. For a perspective, Cecilia Brækhus reigned as the welterweight division's undisputed champion. She reigned as that division's undisputed champion for something like 6 years. 10 defenses as an undisputed champion. Approximately 24 to 25 overall, just shy of Joe Louis's record of title defenses.
A lot of people really don't appreciate that.
But they should. Patricia Bergolt does. Patricia Bergolt, who said, when I turned pro, she was the one I wanted to fight. But at the same time, I looked up to her. She paved the way for all female fighters, Bergolt said. Now I have to put everything aside. During the fight, it's just two of us in the ring. Of course she has a lot of experience, but I've been doing this since I was 10 years old, so I've got experience myself. Patricia is a tall and technical boxer with good reach, known for her fast footwork and ability to control the distance. She doesn't seem to have many weaknesses, considering that very few ever defeated her, but I don't think she likes to get hit and deal with pressure, Bergolt said. She's among the best, even though she has lost her titles. It will be a good fight for sure, with two technical fighters that actually know how to box.
There were all kind of pioneers, all sorts of trailblazers in the sport of women's boxing.
Cecilia Brækhus is just one among them, though recency bias has led to most of the praise.
Well, you hear Clarissa Shields get a lot of praise for medaling 2 times in the Olympics, becoming a 2-time undisputed champion. Katie Taylor,
same situation. She won a gold medal in the Olympics, became an undisputed champion in the pro ranks, put on one of the biggest fights that the sport has ever seen. It's not that they don't deserve the praise that they receive. It's that trailblazers like Cecilia Brækhus, they deserve some of that praise as well.
And they don't always get it due to recency bias.
Fighters like Regina Halmick, Jane fighters like Christy Martin, Nidia Feliciano, Holly Holm, Mia St. John, the fighters of old. The fighters that helped pave the way for the fighters of today. Due to recency bias, their exploits and their contribution to the sport sometimes gets overlooked. But Cecilia Brækhus, she still is an active fighter, albeit a former champion. Patricia Bergolt recognizes that.
Yes, Cecilia's active, quasi-active, so to speak. She hasn't boxed since she lost the second fight to Jessica McCaskill.
She's active in the sense that she hasn't called it a career. She hasn't hung the gloves up. She hasn't retired, though it's been over a year since she actually fought. The cardio is as good as it gets. The preparations will be done, and we're aware of the climate, so there will be no surprises, Bergolt said.
This fight is supposed to go down on the undercard of Oscar Rivas versus Lucas Rozansky, which has now been postponed to September.
What is supposed to be a mandated title defense for the newly crowned Bridgerweight champion Cecilia Brækhus versus Patricia Bergolt is supposed to be on that card. In September, we will have a massive fight between Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall, Bergolt said. If we get more of these kinds of fights, it will be even bigger. Women's boxing is growing, and that's good. Coincidentally, Patricia's fight with Cecilia has been moved to September due to what are being described as logistical issues.
In 2015, Patricia decided to take her boxing to a new level and started competing professionally.
Her goal was to become a world champion, and now, 7 years later, she will defend her WBC title for the first time. The title she procured after being elevated to full champion once Clarissa Shields relinquished the belt and moved back up to middleweight.
Patricia's 12 years younger than Cecilia Brækhus and a lot less experienced.
Sporting a professional record of 15 wins, no losses, and no draws to Cecilia Brækhus' 36 wins, 2 losses, and no draws.
Experience really does have to go to Cecilia, though sometimes a fighter can perhaps be too experienced.
Both fighters only saw action once last year, only once. Cecilia saw action over a year ago when she faced Jessica McCaskill for the second time and lost for the second time. Patricia Bergolt saw action more recently last year.
More recently, in November. It's been less than 12 months since Patricia had a fight.
I don't know if Cecilia Brækhus can pull this off. I give her decent odds at least. Experience being on her side and not being in unfamiliar territory, she's toppled 1 or 2 Swedish fighters, Swedish standouts. Clarice Svensson, the 2 knockouts she racked up over the very experienced and capable Michaela Lauren in her heyday. The issue is, that was some time ago. Is that same Cecilia Brækhus here with us, here today, at 40 years old?
Can she topple this Swedish fighter who's in her physical prime?
Patricia and her handlers, they seem to have the right idea. They seem to think that Cecilia Brækhus, she don't like pressure. She don't like being forced to fight. It just so happens that when you're dealing with an aging fighter, a fighter that's getting long in the tooth, they don't want a physical fight, a rough and tumble fight. They'd prefer to keep it a boxing match. So if it's Patricia's intention to rough up Cecilia the same way that Jessica roughed up Cecilia, she may end up hanging on to her green belt, her WBC title.
It's those physical fights, those rough and tumble fights that cause the fighter to feel their age.
Patricia Bergolt is already the much younger fighter and already the naturally bigger fighter in the fight. If she decides to up the tempo and push the pace on Cecilia, Cecilia might feel her age every bit of 40 years old.
Every bit of that 14,600 days.
Look for this on the undercard of Rivas versus Rosansky, which has now been rescheduled to September. I'm looking forward to finding out if Cecilia still has what it takes to win an alphabet title. In men's super lightweight news, per a tweet from Michael Benson, the Tosh Jailer versus Caterrall rematch is reportedly being planned for November 26th in Glasgow, Scotland, according to Boxing Scene. This bit of information took me by surprise because I half expected Jack Caterall to have home field advantage as opposed to Josh Taylor for this rematch, for this fight. The first fight took place in Josh Taylor's neck of the woods. Apparently, the second one will as well.
Because Josh Taylor has already sacrificed so much to get Jack Caterall back in the ring, I figured he'd do it in Jack's neck of the woods to make a statement.
He's already dropped 2 of his 4 alphabet titles as this division's reigning undisputed champion. He's not undisputed anymore. And these are the sacrifices Josh had to make in order to make this fight viable, make it possible. Him having mandatory challengers in the queue, guys waiting to get a crack at him. He had to sacrifice something to pursue Jack Caterall in a rematch.
And he's done that, but he won't give up home field advantage.
The scoring controversy from the first fight, if I'm being honest, I don't think this is going to go to the judges' scorecards the second time out. I think Josh Taylor still means to make a statement. Most people don't want to acknowledge that he was coming off an injury in that Jack Caterall fight. And while he may have underestimated Jack, if you've been following the career of Josh Taylor all the way back to the O'Hara Davies fight, the Ryan Martin fight, the Ivan Baranchyk fight, the Regis Prograrius unification match, and the undisputed fight with Jose Ramirez, Josh Taylor's dominance in this division has been consistent. This is the only inconsistency we've seen, and I'm not one of these people that thinks you gotta throw the whole fighter away after one off night.
I'm sorry, but Jack Caterall has been, for the most part, a rather unremarkable fighter.
I'm gonna need to see him in there with Josh Taylor for a second time to be convinced that Jack Caterall really has Josh's number and that Josh wasn't simply a victim of circumstance, that the injury he suffered hampered his performance in tandem with Jack Caterall being a decent enough southpaw, though not the first one that Josh Taylor will have faced. I'd wager that Regis Prograrius is a more dangerous, more world-class southpaw than Jack Caterall is.
And Josh Taylor put up one hell of a fight with Regis Prograrius.
I have to see it again. I have to see it 2 times to be convinced that Jack Caterall really has Josh Taylor's number. Josh Taylor, this division's former undisputed champion. 140 pounds isn't characteristically a political weight class, but it's set to become one because the WBA title will be contested between Alberto Puello and Batir Akhmedov. Ismael Barroso will be the mandatory challenger for the winner. They have also ordered Sandor Martin versus O'Hara Davies as an eliminator to move the winner of that fight closer to that newly vacated WBA title. That fight between Alberto Puello and Batir Akhmedov is set to go down on the PBC side of things, on PBC Island. And once that title ends up there, good luck.
Good luck getting it back. They need alphabet titles at that weight. They don't have any right now.
The fight between Alberto Puello and Batir Akhmedov is set to go down late next month on the undercard of Adrian Bronier versus Omar Figueroa.
And if you can believe this, Bronier versus Figueroa is being billed as a super lightweight contest, not a welterweight contest.
I don't know if Adrian Broner or Omar Figueroa can still make 140 pounds safely, though. You get the sense that the winner of the fight could be moved in the direction of Alberto Puello versus Batir Akhmedov for that WBA title. Or maybe they make the winner of that fight.
Maybe they make the winner of Broner versus Figueroa fight Ismael Barroso for WBA mandatory status afterwards.
Ismael Barroso, who's going to return to action on that same card against Fernando Salcedo. Whoever wins that fight has WBA mandatory status.
You just look at this entire card and everything that's going on, and you get the sense that the PBC will have plans for that WBA title, and you won't be seeing it popping up anywhere else anytime soon.
Fat fucking chance that Josh Taylor's get it back. He's got to deal with Caterrall for the second time. Tosh Jailer, this division's former undisputed champion. He is still the man to beat. He is still this division's lineal champion.
But he's busy right now.
He's already vacated the WBA, already vacated the WBC. Jose Zapata and Jose Ramirez are supposed to lock horns for the second time in order to contest the newly vacated green belt. And by way of the IBF,
Subriel Matias versus Jeremias Ponce for the IBF interim title has been ordered.
Yet another group of guys that fight over there on the PBC side of things on PBC Island. That will be yet another interesting situation once it rears its ugly head and a winner emerges, because whoever the winner is, they become the mandatory challenger for one of Josh Taylor's remaining 2 alphabet titles.
You get the sense that this division won't see an undisputed champion for a long time.
Which is unfortunate, because 140 pounds, not being one of the glamour weights, it was a less political division where more interesting fights with more interesting fighters were happening. But as of late, it's really cooled off. And,
you know, that's what made the World Boxing Super Series possible at this weight. The fact that it wasn't as political as some other divisions.
Those days are over. Nevertheless, there are some interesting fights happening. Tosh Jailer versus Caterall 2 being one among them. I like Josh Taylor's chances. I think for the most part, his dominance at this weight has been consistent enough that I'm going with him to win the rematch. Win the rematch emphatically. Win it in Tosh Jailer fashion. The Tartan Tornado had an off night, and that's all I think that was.
That's it.
Jack Cataract.
It's Jack Caterall.
Tuna Casserole better go downstairs and hide in the cellar, because the Tartan Tornado is coming, and I think he's going to bring the house down this time. The same Josh Taylor that he fought before, I don't think that's the one he's about to fight here and now. Look for this in November. And finally, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Tyson Fury has revealed that an exhibition fight with Hafthor Björnsson is in talks for November at a stadium in London. It'd be great to get in there in front of 70,000 fans and show him what boxing is all about. Make him miss and knock him out. And you have to wonder, given Tyson Fury's recent comments, if this fight is going to be free to the fans, free to air, the way he very recently proposed that the Anthony Joshua fight be free to the fans, free to air. We all know that Tyson Fury is full of shit.
He's a fucking con man. He's a shyster.
He's the gypsy king of bullshit.
Just because he can box a bit and just because he's won some alphabet titles doesn't mean he can't be full of shit. He's full of shit.
And if he does end up fighting Thor Bjornsson in November, he won't be available to box the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2, set to go down in just a few weeks' time.
No, not if he's doing that.
The undercard for Joshua versus Usyk 2, the full undercard, was recently announced, recently set, and on that undercard, we're going to see Filip Hrgovic versus Zhilei Zhang, what is an IBF final eliminator. The winner of that fight becomes the IBF's mandatory challenger for the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2. And the only way you can circumvent a mandatory,
you have to ask for it. You have to petition for an exemption to the mandatory to unify.
You need prior approval, but if the plan for Tyson Fury later on this year is to box against a novice boxer who's really more of a strongman and an actor than a pugilist, well, that takes him out of the running for the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2 later on this year. The undisputed fight, if it ever happens, would have to be postponed until next year, meaning the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2 in their very next fight, they may have to face one of their mandatory challengers. Could be the winner of...
It could be the winner of Filip Hrgovic versus Zhilei Zhang. It could be the winner of Joe Joyce's next fight. By way of the WBO, he's the mandatory challenger.
Joe Joyce is supposed to be returning to action before this year is out. I believe it's in September. I don't think he'll be available on that kind of timeline to face the winner of Joshua versus Usyk 2 this year, so that would make the winner of Hrgovic versus Zhang the front runner, I think, or Robert Helenius.
By way of the WBA, Robert Helenius is demanding that he be named the mandatory challenger for the winner of this fight.
And he might. We'll see. The entire situation at heavyweight right now is immaterial because Tyson Fury is still in possession of the WBC title, but we don't know how much longer he's going to hang on to it, if he intends to hang on on to it at all. The WBC has given Tyson Fury until October to make a decision as to what's going to happen in his career. And so far, this is the most news we've heard, that he's going to have an exhibition match with Björnsson in November. I don't think that qualifies as a fight.
It's not a fucking fight, it's an exhibition match. The WBC can't sanction that as an actual contest.
I mean, I don't think they can. Try as they might. They can't let him hang on to the WBC title on the premise that he's going to box Björnsson in November. The WBC very recently stated if he decides to vacate the title, what they mean to order is a fight between Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder. Rather, the winner of Ruiz versus Ortiz, I should say, since that's who Andy Ruiz is set to fight.
Deontay Wilder's ranked at number 1 and the WBC's still full of shit.
So's Tyson Fury, always carrying on about how he's a fighting man and AJ is a business guy. Well, if you're the fighting man and he's the business guy, what the hell are you doing boxing an actor? A strong man? That's not a serious pugilist, a serious professional, and you know that. And are you gonna do it for free?
You know who Björnsson is? He's the guy from Game of Thrones. He's the guy who was more recently seen in Northman.
You remember the scene where him and Alexander Skarsgård are playing football? That's him. That's Björnsson.
The guy Alexander Skarsgård headbutted to death.
This is Tyson Fury's idea of being a fighting man, boxing a strong man, an actor.
Before that, he was talking about doing a crossover fight with Francis Ngannou. Now he wants to box a strong man.
Very recently won an ESPY for Male Boxer of the Year. Can you believe this? He wins Male Boxer of the Year.
He's full of fucking shit is what he is, and I'm sick of it.
You got plans to box with MMA fighters, plans to box actors and strongmen, but you insist on hanging on to the WBC title, holding up the undisputed heavyweight championship in the actual sport of boxing, and effectively freezing those ranks since that title is not available to be contested at this time.
Why don't you just vacate it and get the fuck out of here?
Go on and get the fuck on. Sail into the sunset, do what you want, do as many exhibitions with as many actors and strongmen and MMA guys.
I'm all out of patience with this used car salesman, this fucking con man.
Go hawk more of your crappy merchandise and get the hell out of here.